Hi everyone, it's Chenzo from Reality Art Pod here to talk about the Traitors Season 3, Episode 3, titled Nail in a Coffin. When we last left off, Faithful Wells was banished from the castle, off to make Tito sodas for hot singles in paradise. The three new additions dished out shields, and Rob joined fellow traitors Bob, Carolyn, and Danielle in the turret to pick a target for murder. Before I dive in, don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed this 3-part premiere of videos, and subscribe if you haven't. As always, my recaps aren't meant to replace the original material, so if you missed the episodes, I encourage you to seek them out on Peacock to enjoy them and form your own opinion. But let's dive into it. Back in the turret, the traitors are annoyed by Rob's presence. They know where all the shields are, and Bob pushes that they murder a housewife. The others don't like that idea, and Rob feels like Bob is being a dictator. Rob organizes them, and they narrow their options down to Tom, Ayan, and Dolores. Carolyn still feels like a team of one, and that the others don't want to play with her. At breakfast, the self-proclaimed Cage Boys are first to arrive. The other players filter in. Danielle announces that she feels like someone is going to take Brittany out to frame her, and says that the traitors are going to kill Bob the drag queen. Danielle's being very loud here about her predictions and her croissant. Rob thinks Danielle's going to get herself banished with her behavior. For best dressed in breakfast, I would say Sierra. I like the red and the houndstooth. In the end, Bob got his way and Ayan was murdered. So we say goodbye to Ayan here, and when she found out she was murdered, she was devastated. I'm surprised she cared so much because she doesn't seem to know what's going on at all and was relying on Wells, who just left. It's for the best that she leaves because she was contributing nothing to the show. It's kind of sad she didn't wear anything crazy in her time there. She probably brought a lot of outfits, but there's always Instagram. The reaction to her murder is confusion and frustration from the remaining housewives, Robin and Dolores. Alan enters wearing sequin pants, a cutout bleeding heart top with giant collar, and a gold and black turban. Tells them that Rob, Wes, and Derek are now real players who can be murdered and banished, and leaves them to their business. Carolyn feels left out by the other traitors and tries to talk to some of the faithfuls. They walk away from her, and Bob Harper calls her batshit as they walk away, which is mean and rude. Jeremy comforts Carolyn and tells her that he's on to Danielle and that Danielle's acting funny. Wes takes Robin under his wing, telling her he doesn't think the housewives are traitors. Robin tells him Tony's a traitor. Wes then runs this right back to Tony, telling Tony the housewives think he's a traitor. Tony feels misjudged. Dylan rounds up a big group that includes Rob, telling them that Bob the drag queen is a traitor because he was pushing Wells' name. Then they head to their mission where they're at a clown carnival. They pair up into teams of 2. Alan has gotten his look gathered. He is the ringmaster in a top hat and a Harley Quinn makeup. Each pair will have a gold balloon worth $2,000. In each hallway, they have to pick one of 4 doors. Behind 3 of the doors, there's a clown with a knife that's going to stab their balloon. They have to describe the doors that they're picking over loudspeakers to the other players, so the other players don't make the same mistakes they make. It's basically like the glass bridge from Squid Game. The first pair to get to the end will win shields, and every pair to make it to the end wins $2,000 for the pot. They have to pick an order, knowing that the first few pairs will definitely not get shields. Bob Harper basically forces Tony to go first, which pisses Tony off. Tony and Nikki go first and get stabbed by the clown, followed by 2 other teams. Bob Harper and Dolores go fourth and can't even remember the previous doors, choosing a door that was already picked, which makes everyone mad. They montage through this a bit. This challenge is really fun to watch. Every time the clown stabs their balloon, it's satisfying. Sierra and Wes go last and get to the last doors, where groundskeeper Fergus is tweaking with his red nose, but they get their balloon stabbed, meaning the team wins no money in this challenge and no shields. They suck. They head back to the castle. Tony is still annoyed with Bob Harper, but Gabby doesn't think Bob is a traitor. Jeremy speaks up, saying he thinks Danielle is a traitor because of how she's acting. So Bob tells Danielle that Jeremy thinks she's a traitor and a fake crier. Carolyn confirms to Danielle that Jeremy mentioned her name to her as well. Nikki, Chriselle, and Gabby sync up, naming their alliance the Bambis. The Bambis think Tony is suspicious. Jeremy, Dylan, and Wes meet in the kitchen. When Dylan pushes Bob the drag queen as a traitor, Jeremy runs it right back to Bob. Now this is getting messy. Bob is furious. He goes to Brittany and Nikki, and Brittany tells Bob that Dylan is the only person saying his name. At the Roundtable, where everyone is lightly dusted with glitter, Dylan timidly pipes up, calling out Bob the drag queen for targeting Wells. Bob confidently deflects, saying that Wells' name was brought to him. He just brought it up at the table. Robin chimes in, calling out Dylan for approaching her right after the last roundtable, and they bring up that Ayan was there with them, and that Ayan was murdered right after. Gabby interjects to clear Bob's name, and throws out Tony's name because he was fighting with Bob Harper. Tony becomes defensive and chaotic, and he and Bob Harper throw barbs back and forth. Jeremy backs Tony up, saying he knows Tony and doesn't believe he's a traitor. Robin says that Tony is exactly the kind of person that the show would cast to be a traitor because he'd be good at it. Robin makes a really good point about the type of people they pick to be traitors, and Dylan chimes in that Bob the drag queen would be good at it too, but Bob doesn't let Dylan have any oxygen to start a fire with his ideas. Seeing an opportunity to bury Tony here, Rob brings up that he gave Tony a shield, and since then, Tony hasn't talked any game to him. And with that, they get to the votes. Tony gets the majority of the votes and gets emotional and cries as they vote for him. In the end, Tony reveals himself as a faithful and calls Rob a sellout on the way out. And we lose Tony here, who came into the season a 2-time reality winner, big target. He just isn't naturally meant for the Traitors, at least in a faithful role. His initial strategy is just pointing fingers. He's going guns blazing against Chriselle in the premiere. Then he gets into it with Dorinda and Bob Harper in only 3 episodes. He just can't go under the radar and gets scapegoated in the end. He obviously knows that Rob is selling him down the river and takes that last shot at Rob that I think will just bleed Rob out slowly over time. I'm not upset at all to see him go here. I don't dislike Tony, but I've seen enough Tony in my life. After Tony's departure, Rob defends himself to the group, repeating the Shield story. Bob the drag queen approaches Dylan and tries to smooth things over. Dylan tells us he doesn't have the support to keep taking shots at Bob, at least for now, even though he's still sus of Bob. Through all of this, the sellout comment has made Derek suspicious of Rob, something to keep an eye on. At the end of the episode, the Traitors get messages in confessional that they have to write 3 names on a scroll that's in a coffin in the wine cellar. The 3 players on the shortlist who can be traitors will be put in coffins, and the Traitors will hammer a nail into one of their coffins, murdering them. The last few minutes of the episode are the Traitors running around, trying to strategize, and the show making it seem like they're going to get caught. They're not going to. I liked this episode a lot more than episode 2. The challenge was fun. I liked that they lost the challenge. There have to be some stakes for them to keep around people who are good at challenges. In the voting, there were some interesting votes. Dylan was the only one who voted for Bob the drag queen. Bob and Wes voted for Ivor after all of that. After the Traitors killed Dorinda, shouldn't they have tried harder to blame Ivor or someone else for killing the housewives instead of the housewives? Dorinda and Ivor had that fight and then she got killed, and I feel like Bob's not trying to let that go, which is smart. But it has been a long night of YouTubing for me. Let me know in the comments what you thought of these episodes. If you liked these videos, leave them a like. I'll be back next Thursday to recap 1 episode of The Traitors. Until then, have a nice weekend. Bye!